Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling an absolutely wild thought experiment. We are going to explore a scenario, based entirely on our source text, where we strip away centuries of established reality to ask one massive foundational question about the North American continent. So get ready, because we're about to completely rethink the map, the culture, and the entire geopolitical balance of the world as you know it.
What if 1776 just never happened? I mean, really imagine waking up in the year 2026, but looking out at a world without an independent United States of America. We're talking about a modern timeline that is entirely missing its primary economic and cultural engine. No Revolutionary War, no founding fathers declaring independence. The 13 American colonies just remained a collection of British colonies right into the modern era. How does that one single change ripple out across the centuries?
Okay, let's dive into this. Because instead of the United States, our source text points us toward the creation of the Dominion of North America. Think of this as a massive, self-governing commonwealth, kind of like an expanded version of modern-day Canada or Australia. They'd manage all their own internal affairs, sure, but they'd retain the British monarch as their ceremonial head of state. By avoiding that violent rupture of 1776, this single, unified Dominion timeline fundamentally alters everything from human rights to modern tech.
Section 1. Redrawing the continental map. To truly grasp this alternative reality, we have to look at the physical geography, because the contrast in governance is stunning. Instead of 50 individual states unified under a federal system in Washington, that whole concept vanishes. Rather, the continent would be carved up into these vast, sweeping regional provinces. And instead of a president sitting in Washington, you'd likely have a prime minister governing from a major imperial hub. We're talking a capital city like New York or maybe even Montreal. The entire centralization of power shifts.
And those changing borders have massive implications. First, consider the continent's interior. In our timeline, American homesteaders pushed aggressively westward. But under British rule, the historic British Proclamation Line, which was intended to protect Native American lands, would have likely evolved into permanent, sovereign indigenous protectorates right in the middle of the modern Midwest. And second, the West Coast would look completely different. The American Southwest and California just wouldn't exist as part of this dominion. They'd probably remain part of Mexico, or maybe exist as an entirely independent Hispanic republic.
And why is that? Well, because a British Dominion would fundamentally lack the ideological drive of Manifest Destiny. There wouldn't be that ingrained nationalistic push that sparked events like the Mexican-American War. Without that very specific American ideological engine driving Western expansion, the map just stops moving west in the same way. It leaves the continent divided among vastly different cultural and political powers.
Section 2. A less violent history.
And this brilliantly illustrates a profound shift. You see, when you change the borders and the government, you inevitably change the social fabric. By staying within the British Empire, the social history of North America actually bypasses its absolute bloodiest internal chapter. Historically, the British Empire abolished slavery across all its dominions in 1833. Since the American colonies would still be part of that empire, emancipation would have come to the American South 3 whole decades earlier than it did for us. Because of that 1833 abolition, by the time the 1860s rolled around, the catalyst for the American Civil War would have already been legally resolved by the broader empire.
Now, you might be wondering, wouldn't wealthy plantation owners in places like Virginia and the Carolinas fiercely resist this? Oh, absolutely. But they would have faced forced compliance by the overwhelming economic and naval might of London. A localized rebellion by plantation owners just wouldn't stand a chance against the full, unified power of the global British military apparatus enforcing a decree across the empire.
So what does this all mean? We arrive at this incredible historical contrast. Instead of an American Civil War, where hundreds of thousands of lives were tragically lost, the war is entirely averted. The deep-seated generational scars, the massive destruction of infrastructure, and the specific systemic racial divisions that defined the post-war American era would have evolved along a completely different, significantly less violent path. It's a staggering what-if to wrap your head around.
Section 3. Culture and daily life.
Imagine just walking down the street in this alternate 2026. The atmosphere would be distinctly British in flavor, but totally shaped by the vastness of American geography. First off, linguistics. The accents across New York and New England would hold on to a much stronger Commonwealth cadence. Think of a subtle blend of the modern American Northeast with traditional British intonations. And sports? Say goodbye to gridiron football and baseball. Cricket and rugby would completely dominate the continent. Picture folks gathering in pubs to watch the North American 11 regularly compete against Australia and India in huge international tournaments like the Ashes.
And it's not just sports and accents. Imagine opening your wallet in this 2026. The US dollar, the current global reserve currency, literally would not exist. Instead, you'd be pulling out the imperial pound. This means that global trade, global finance, and those incredibly lucrative oil markets would all be denominated in this singular, empire-wide currency.
And why would the imperial pound be so dominant? Well, it would be backed by the combined unimaginable wealth of the British Isles, the vast natural resources of North America, and the massive economic engine of India. The sheer economic weight backing this currency on the world stage would make it an absolute, untouchable juggernaut in global finance.
Which naturally brings us to cultural exports. Contrast our current reality of American tech and Hollywood with a British-dominated Silicon Valley and Hollywood. The entertainment capital might still organically pop up in the gorgeous weather of California, but the films, they'd be heavily saturated with Commonwealth themes and tied directly to British distribution networks. And Silicon Valley? It wouldn't be an independent American powerhouse. It would operate specifically as the premier tech hub of the British Empire, funneling all that innovation straight into the imperial system.
Section 4. The Unstoppable Global Empire.
So, the crucial point is how all of this internal rewiring completely reshapes the outside world. We have to talk about the massive implications this dominion would have had for the global balance of power throughout the 20th century. A unified British Empire holding the immense agricultural, industrial, and human resources of North America would create an unstoppable hyperpower. Furthermore, because North America is part of the empire from day one, there is no independent American superpower sitting on the sidelines waiting to bail out Europe during the World Wars.
Honestly, those wars might never have even escalated to the levels we know. A massive, integrated British Empire would have easily deterred the ambitions of rival powers, like Imperial Germany or a rising Soviet Union, simply through its sheer, undeniable scale. I mean, the math of going to war against the unified Britain, North America, India, and Australia all at the same time is so daunting that historical conflicts might have just been snuffed out before they ever truly began.
Which leaves us with this final, stunning contrast for our alternate 2026. In our world today, global stability is maintained by democratic, multinational alliances like NATO. But in this timeline, the world isn't defined by alliances of independent nations. Instead, global stability is maintained by the unassailable hegemony of the British Crown. It would be a vast, ocean-spanning commonwealth where the sun literally never sets, dictating the global order from one singular, centralized imperial authority. And that brings us to the end of our explainer, leaving us with this incredibly powerful, provocative question: would an unassailable British hyperpower have made for a safer world by 2026? On one hand, you avert a devastating civil war and perhaps even deter global world wars. But on the other, you trade away the existence of an independent democratic republic for the total hegemony of a singular global empire. It really makes you ponder the true cost and the immense ripple effects of alternative history. Keep questioning what you know, keep analyzing the sources, and thank you so much for joining me today.